Alright guys, this is the Sculpted Sketchbook. So here I'm starting with the fused glass piece I asked you to pick out. You can use it if you want, you don't have to. I incorporated it as part of my design, kind of like an eyeball. So I'm drawing other shapes around the fused piece where I think I'm going to set it on my cover, and I'm mimicking that kind of eyeball shape. Now I'm going to draw the rest of my creature, just a really simple line drawing of the shapes that I want to stay in as I'm sculpting. I'm leaving some negative space on my cover just to add a little bit of variation. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with that. I'm tracing the fused piece so I know where to stick it. Here's a little example. I'm going to use the hot glue to stick on the fused glass piece. Make sure it's wiped off on the back and clean, and then just give a really good dab of glue and some pressure on there to make sure that it's stuck well. Now slide in a piece of paper or newsprint if you have it, just to make sure that you don't sculpt your book shut. And now I'm going to start painting in some of those ovals I drew to mimic the eyeball. I'm just using white paint and filling in some of the areas before I start to sculpt. You guys have palettes, so you should try and use them. I didn't use them in the first little part of the video, but they'll make painting much easier and keeping your colors separated. So I'm really just giving these one coat. They should dry pretty quickly before I start to sculpt the book. Alright, that looks pretty good. Now, here's our sculpting tools that we have. I left out the paintbrushes as well, just in case. And I grabbed some of the clay, the air dry clay. My clay is a little bit different than yours, but it's basically the same. I'm using a flat surface, which I'm just using the cover of my book so that you guys can see it. You can use your table to kind of roll out these long noodles of clay. If you are having trouble getting them even, kind of work from the center out as you're rolling them on the table. Okay, so I grabbed one of our silicone sculpting tools, and I'm using the back edge, kind of the flat side, to just smooth out the air dry clay around the edges to make sure that it's really stuck on my book. If your clay is moving around or seems a little dry, you can use a little bit of water to stick it onto the cover of your book. So just take a little dab of water on your finger and brush it on the surface where you want to stick the clay. Or if your clay is dry, do the same thing, but kind of ball up the clay in your hand as you mix in the water. Just be sure not to add too much water. So I'm doing the same thing over and over, just making those little noodles of clay, smoothing out the edge, building up around the eyeballs so that it looks like 3D eye sockets. The glass piece represents the eyeball that's the closest, and all the eyeballs that I painted with the white paint are kind of recessed further back in the creature. Take your time when doing this. You know, this is your design, your creature, so you can make it look however you want. we're just kind of starting out with building up the highest parts of our creature's designs. So mine is some of the eyeball areas, as well as like maybe a tentacle or two, which you'll see me working on later on in this video. A lot of it is just adding little pieces and smoothing it back in. Alright, so now I'm working on the tentacle. You can see I kind of wet the surface of the sketchbook just so that the clay would stick a little bit better. And now I'm going to use the hot glue to build up a little bit of volume around my tentacle so that I can use less of the clay. So I'm just putting a big glob of hot glue. Don't touch it. It's going to be really toasty, so just be careful if you guys do this. It's just so that you can use less of that clay. And then we're going to cover it with the clay. Smooth it back in, just like before, and really work the clay over that hot glue mass we just put down. Alright, that's it for this video. I'm going to show you some texturing tips in real time now.